Bae Dixon and I'm representing TAFESA, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for having me here today. I feel very privileged for two reasons. The first is that I'm amongst such esteemed colleagues, given that I'm very new to TAFESA and very new to the sport for all and physical activity sector. So I do feel very privileged, first of all, to be here, and secondly, to be able to present on what I think is a very successful concept and for which I can take absolutely no credit for. So I will do my best to give active Launceston some credit. Just a brief overview of what I will speak about today. First of all, where is Launceston, and a little bit about Launceston and why they chose to become an active city. Additionally, I'll talk a bit more about the concept behind Active Launceston and how they've established the concept rather than the results as some of the other presenters have spoken on, because Active Launceston is quite young. So I'll talk about the program objectives, the funding, the organisational structure and the partners, which, as we've seen already today, they're key to the success of any program of this type, the initiatives that they've come up with, marketing, branding, results and outcomes, although there aren't many to speak of yet because it is a young program, and just summaries with a few key points. So where is Launceston, you may ask? It is in Tasmania, which is Australia's smallest and most southern state, and it's also an island state down the bottom. If we take a closer look at Tasmania, you'll find Launceston in the upper eastern corner. A little bit about Launceston. It has a population of about 100,000 people, about 65,000 of which live in the municipality or central Launceston. Their average summer temperature is 24.4 degrees and average winter temperature is 12.5 degrees. So as you can imagine, I'm a little cold up here. It's also a good climate to be outdoors and to make the most of physical activity opportunities outdoors. So hopefully they're doing more of that these days. There also has some sister cities in Japan, USA and China. And it's one of Australia's oldest cities, founded in 1806. So we are also quite young. So why did Launceston decide to become an active city? Obviously we're all here for this reason. There are inherent benefits in physical activity. They are health, both physical and mental, social benefits, community and integration, cultural, environmental and economic benefits. I'm sure you're more aware of those than I am. But specifically for Tasmania, since 2001, participation in sport in Tasmania has fallen by 8.7%, which is quite alarming considering how much more information we have these days about the benefits of physical activity. And additionally, 70% of Tasmanians are insufficiently active for health benefits. So over 2/3 of the population aren't receiving any, or the health benefits that they could be receiving from physical activity. Additionally, being an active city highlights, or has the potential to highlight Launceston on a global map, because I'm not sure how many of you would have known where Launceston was before this presentation. And it also allows for the analysis of the results that might come out of such a program, because this is a pilot program or a model program, and the application of those results in other cities or communities around Tasmania, Australia and the world. So a little bit of background to Active Launceston. Every good program has a lot of planning involved. So Active Launceston, when it was first being established, had to come up with some clear objectives and how they were going to get to those objectives, so the strategies through which they would achieve those objectives. Their objectives, they have three key objectives, the first of which is to identify and engage with relevant groups to coordinate, cooperate and commit to the goal of Active Launceston. The second is to enhance and increase the opportunities for the community's participation in physical activity. And the third is to identify and develop resources that support and monitor increased participation in physical activity. Moving on to the strategies through which Launceston hope to achieve these objectives. For the first objective, the formation of active Launceston committees and capacity building, someone else earlier spoke about capacity building, developing the capacity of relevant community groups of Launceston to deliver the goal of Active Launceston. To achieve the second objective, deliver and support events that relate to the goal of Active Launceston, improve participation in and value adding to existing programs, and new initiatives, introducing new initiatives to the community based on an identified need. So it's quite a structured program. And finally, their strategies were to identify and build on existing resources and develop new resources where required. So first of all, analyse where those resources were indeed required. Develop communication methods with the community and key stakeholders, and measure and report on the outcomes of the project. It's somewhat futile to put a lot of effort into something if you then can't use the results or measure the results. So there will be a lot of focus on that in the time to come. And of course, every successful project needs some backing. The primary source of funding for Active Launceston has been governmental. They were successful in obtaining grants from both the federal and state government. You'll notice that both categories of the grants are to do with community and sport and physical activity. So it was the Active Australia Community and Schools grant from the federal government and the Sport and Recreation Tasmania Community grant from the state government. The timeline for the pilot project, it's an 18-month pilot period and it commenced in June 2008. So it's still in its early days, it's still getting up and running, but as I hope to show you, it's quite well developed and it's been quite successful from the word go. So how does Active Launceston actually work? It's much smaller than some of the examples we've had previously today. But as you'll notice, common to all of the examples we've seen today, there are many different bodies involved and they need to be working together in strong partnership for the program to be successful. I'll run through the partners individually on the next slide, but there are also supporters of the project, so various non-profit and commercial sport for all and health organisations. So again, it's the blending of the physical activity and health aspects. Funding bodies, which are primarily the government bodies I spoke about, as well as some private sponsors. So Southern Cross Television, which is a local television network, and the Hawthorn Football Club, which is Australian rules football, by the way. There is then the project team. So there is a project manager, Gail Hart, from the University of Tasmania, who is the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning at the university. And there's also a full-time project coordinator, Lucy Marshall. And of course, there are the participants. And participants, as with most of these programs, vary from in all ages, in all ethnic groups, for all backgrounds. So there's individuals, schools, volunteers, health centres, sports clubs, colleges. The Heart Foundation has become involved, after-school care programs, conservation organisations, and the list goes on and on. So who are the partners I mentioned earlier? The program is run out of the University of Tasmania. The state government also supports the program, as well as the City Council. The Examiner newspaper is the primary commercial partner, and of course TAFESA. The initiatives that Active Launceston run are divided fundamentally into three different groups. They have events, which are more one-off events. And then they have programs, which are things that are run daily, weekly, monthly for the duration of the project. And then they have a range of other events, so I'll cover all three. The first that I'll look at are just one-off events. So Active Launceston participated in the Giant Walk, which was the Guinness Book of Records attempt to break the Guinness Book of Records for the most people walking 1 kilometre at a time. They have fun runs and walks. They have a physical activity expo, which includes the TAFESA International Challenge Day. And they also support other already existing activities. For example, in Australia we have a National Walk to Work Day, a National Ride to Work Day, and there's also in Tasmania a Getting Walking Week. They also run a series of programs, and these two groups boxes should be fairly familiar to you by now, with the different settings and target groups that are all related to the physical activity field and where you can target your programs. And Active Launceston has indeed tried to target all of those. So I've listed something that applies to every one of those settings or target groups, which they've been quite successful in covering a huge range of activities. So, for example, to do with healthcare, they've got information sessions for GPs and nurses. In workplaces, they have a Get Moving at Work program. For neighbourhoods, they have a Green Gym and Better Earth program, which is people gardening and performing outdoor activities just to create a greener environment for themselves. They have GOLD, the Growing Old Living Dangerously, for the older people. They have Treks in the City, which I thought was a good concept for employees. So it's every day